Don in London, hello. October 28th, interesting. I don't know about interesting, but anyway, October 28th, my video is all about recovery from addiction to substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour equally addictive around people, places and things. So, used to be addicted to alcohol, now an alcoholic in recovery, and still the behaviour around people, places and things can give me jip. That is, trying to fit in, trying to be a part of, trying to be included, being a very trying person. But under the influence of drink, I suspect it was me trying to please people so I could be a part of whatever was going on. And I know the first drink I ever took fixed my feelings. It took away the pain of whatever was troubling me, the fear of maybe not fitting in somehow. It was very difficult to work out exactly what sort of impression alcohol made on me, other than it took away fear. Made me feel fairly happy and a bit silly, but I was very, very young. What I learned, it did fix the way I felt. So having a good example of a family who were often awash with alcohol in one way or another, but not necessarily alcoholics. Maybe my father was drinking 2 bottles of whiskey a day, often, I suspect, and drowning his sorrows because life had dealt him a bad set of cards, or a bad hand, and sometimes it worked out okay, and he was very, very good at making money and looking after us in that respect, and at other times it was dire and horrible, and eventually it got to a place where he didn't make enough money to keep the family going, and we all had to go out to work. And we celebrated our work ethic with drink. We all drank too much, and as a consequence, I guess for me, it helped me fix the way I felt and helped me try fit in as best I could with whatever was going on with career, work, relationships. So it became a part of my life. And then as time goes by, we become dependent and we don't know it. And some of us become addicted and cannot stop, no matter what we do. We know it's wrong for us, we know it's causing self-harm, and we know it's the very last thing we ought to be doing. But for one reason or another, whatever is behind the drinking behaviour, we haven't sorted it out, and we just cannot stop. I couldn't. I had several moments of clarity saying, I cannot do this on my own, and yet, having asked for help, I still went back for 1 or 2 more visits to see whether alcohol could solve the problems, and it didn't. I just had to drink more to get the same effect, or I was so impatient to get the effect that I would drink more and hope it would happen sooner. But things only happen at the pace they can, so in the end, no amount of drink would do what it used to do. Take the edge off, fix how I felt, and make life palatable. In the end, I did get dry with a lot of help, and then it was suggested I go to a fellowship, that fellowship being AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And being a hardened drinker, the very last place one ever thinks of going is the place which might help us stay sober one day at a time, because we're resentful and angry at ourselves, and then resentful and angry at the idea that we must give up our best friend, or the best friend that I had adopted, alcohol, a substance, and the behaviour that went with it, trying to be perfect in an imperfect world. So these days, life is imperfectly perfect, it's just the way it is, and if I can cover my needs, just cover my needs, then the wanting stops. The wanting to fix myself, to have more of something, is reduced significantly into needs met today. And one of the comments I will be talking about is, I've got enough porridge in the cupboard, I'll be alright. But when I woke up this morning and listened to the international news, it's the world going to hell in a handbasket, as one person observed some time back. And it's full of inequality and full of misery, as well as full of joy and happiness. So as half the world is in a place of joy, the other half of the world is in a place of sad. And that's just as life is for humans. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad, but these days it's far better sober than it's ever been, because I know what my feelings are telling me, or rather I know what my feelings are and how it impacts on my thinking. So if my mood is good, my thinking is probably good. If my mood is bad, full of anger and resentment, then my thinking is going to be around anger and resentment, which leads to all sorts of problems if you're trying to keep sober. We need to be able to deal with life on life's terms, and I guess this is what the Fellowship of AA has afforded me over the last few years: how to live sober and face life on life's terms. I'm not perfect at it, never will be, but it's imperfectly perfect, if that makes any sense. It's imperfectly perfect because I can keep on learning what life is about, and for me it's very simple, really: how to love, be loved and useful. Simple as that: how to love, be loved and useful. And if I understand that, no matter what is happening in terms of activity, upside, downside, you name it, I can probably cope with what is going on right now. I can't challenge the future. I can aim at something in the future, but live in the moment and do what I can on the journey of life. Enjoy it when it's enjoyable, and not enjoy it when it's not enjoyable. Life is like that. It's never going to be perfect, and if it were perfect, what would be the point? So nature abhors, I suspect, perfection, other than it's imperfectly perfect and continuing to evolve. And we humans are evolving too, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. But the promise is that we are going to evolve, and we can make the best of what is sober. How does AA help me? Well, I didn't want to go there, didn't want to be a part of it, didn't want to be included, didn't want to give up alcohol, and was perfectly happy to expire in many respects. But I got to a place where I thought it couldn't get any worse. Why not give it a go? I'd lost everything in terms of my own ability to cope. And AA said, you only have to cope for today, so why not give it a go? So here I share about how it helps me. I don't share what other people are up to. I may share in a general way how Fellowship helps me, but I don't actually speak for the Fellowship. Nobody speaks for the Fellowship. It's an entity, a fellowship of people who are unique and authentic on their life journey, helping each other to keep sober one day at a time. So to explain that more fully, the AA preamble on this little card, I read it out and add a couple of things. So if you ever do encounter the need to go to a fellowship for addiction to substances or behaviour, mainly it's about how do we stop self-harming, then the fellowships generally have this AA preamble, or a preamble shared at every meeting, which sort of outlines what it's about. So here we go, and then I'll share some readings from literature and some of the things that occur to me today and over the years. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So it's a fellowship, a society. It's not an organisation in the conventional sense. It's based on fellowship, how to love, be loved and useful. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. So you're very welcome if you have a desire to stop drinking. That's all it needs, or we need as people. There are no rules, laws or regulations in AA, and I emphasise that over and over again. There are no rules, laws or regulations. There are 12 steps in a toolkit to help us keep sober, and there are 12 traditions to keep the fellowship in unity, service and recovery. So steps and traditions are not laws, rules or regulations. They are simply suggestions, and we live them as we decide, as we learn life. So some people don't utilise the 12 steps, but they're perfectly happy, and some people don't even know what the traditions are, but they do think they're laws, regulations and rules, but they're not. So a desire to come into a fellowship is all we need, and make of it what you will. And we try and help each other. and we try and pass on the experience, strength and hope of how the toolkit works. 12 steps to be open, honest and willing to live life today, and the 12 traditions which hold the fellowship in unity, service and recovery. That's most important. Nobody can impose anything on you. And often you will hear, are you willing to go to any lengths to get sober? How on earth can you make that decision when you don't even know what the fellowship is about? So going to any lengths is something we learn as time goes by. Progress, not perfect. So I say that openly because it can be mistaken as a process. You may be asked, are you willing to go to any lengths to be sober? If you ask somebody to help you out as a sponsor, and you may say, well, I'm still working on that, can you just help me understand what's going on? That might be a better place to start. That's a personal opinion, by the way, not anything that AA says. Going on, there are no dues or fees for AA membership, meaning you don't have to put any money in if you don't have any, but we are self-supporting through our own contributions, so we don't accept outside help. Fellowship is not affiliated to anything, so we cover our rent, tea, coffee, biscuits and literature from our own pockets, and if we've got any money we can spare after food, rent, rates, feeding the family, all of that stuff, then we put a few coppers in, and what we find is we have a prudent reserve often of about 4 weeks, just enough. So there are never issues of money to worry about, except just having enough to cover the basics. And if we say, we have treasurers for each meeting and group, and they will tell us if we're running a bit short, so we might dig a few pennies deeper and pay up. But if you haven't got money, don't worry about it. And most of the meetings will give you free literature and a standing start, so you can start your own path of sobriety with the help of everyone around you as best they can. It doesn't mean they're all equipped to help you. We all have our outlooks and opinions, and this is important, which comes next. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. So the fellowship is not there for anything but sobriety, and that's part of the primary purpose I'll show in a moment. But every single person in AA has outlooks, opinions, beliefs, all in abundance, sober. So you're going to hear about them, and that's just how it is. But unpicking that, there is one similarity: a desire to stop drinking and remain stopped. And our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So the fellowship is a very broad church. Invites anybody in who wants to be sober from any walk of life, has other issues, has other medical issues besides being addicted probably to alcohol, but those issues are outside the purview of what we can do, really. Sober first is where we start, and the rest of life will happen as it may. Now often people have other outside issues, like psychological issues which are built up over the years, like me for example, frightened of life completely at the end and willing to give it a go because it just couldn't get any worse. That's where I started, and I did have help from the medical services in the UK, the National Health Service, who have alcohol treatment centres all over the UK, and I went to one in Soho. I actually wrote to them to say, please can I come along, and they accepted me free and said, yes, we will try and support you for 2 years. One meeting a week with a counsellor, one what do you call it, I suppose, relapse prevention group a week, and then it went to one a month for the personal counselling. But the most important part of that was being included in an outside agency which was complementary to the fellowship's outlook of 12 steps and 12 traditions, developing a toolkit to keep sober one day at a time. And many in the National Health Service are fully aware of how it works, how the fellowship works, and would encourage people, if you want longer term sobriety one day at a time, where can you get help 24/7? Well, there is only one place I know of, and that's fellowship. unless you're gifted with a lot of money and you can have your own personal journeyman with you all the time. But the other thing is, it takes a lot of people to keep one person sober. And very often, if one person tries to keep one other person sober without the backing or connection to some other bigger organisation outside fellowship or the fellowship itself, one person trying to help one person on their own tends to pull the other both down rather than pull them both up. And the same applies to counselling as well. If you have a counsellor, they are normally under supervision if they are licensed, because they need their own counsellor. The only disadvantage is if you go to a counsellor instead of AA and just rely on the counsellor, you may only see them once or twice a week and have to pay a fortune for it, because that's what it costs. It's quite expensive, because a counsellor only has so many hours a day to work, and they are expensive because they have skill. So in fellowship we are not professional, but we have lots of experience, strength and hope to share. And through the 12 steps, open, honest and willing, we find how to be sober for ourselves and still keep with fellowship, because a daily reminder of some sort or other is probably worthwhile. And having fellowship there in the background helps us keep sober, so our lives can work as they are. Lives can work as they are today and improve because we're sober. That might sound like common sense, but in the malady, in the insanity of what was going on for me, letting go and getting help and sharing the truth of who I was, getting a detailed understanding of what caused me to be the way I was, sharing it, learning how to deal with old behaviour, learning how to improve and get into new behaviour, how to make amends to people, make a list, how to make those amends, how to deal with daily upsets, how to get some more wisdom through meditation and whatever it is, maybe prayer, depending on your belief system, and then sharing it with other people. What I've just described is the 12 steps, actually, in a few seconds. That's what it does. It just gives us a better outlook of what we can and cannot do. But it's complicated because, although it's a simple process, we are complicated individuals, as is anyone. We're full of life and life experiences. Some of us very young in fellowship, some are in their teens, and some are in their 80s, 90s, and been sober a long time, or even in their 80s just getting sober for the first time. Doesn't matter where you start with the fellowship. You start with not being sober, coming through to sober, so that maybe life can improve. But we still have to face reality, and that's the most important part of it. Facing reality, life on life's terms. So today, daily reflections. I share from AA literature from this book, the Daily Reflections, and in it it has 1 page a day covering the 12-step program for us individuals, how to be open, honest and willing to learn life every day, and the 12 traditions, how to live in unity, service and recovery within fellowship. And I keep on emphasising society, fellowship. That's what it is. It's not there to instruct you. It's not an organisation you can say, on any given day, going to an AA meeting is going to keep me sober. It's likely to keep me sober, but on any given day, that is the fellowship as it is, real life on life's terms. Some people happy, some people sad, some people raving, some people completely sane, and we hear the message, and what we see is what we get. It's attraction, not promotion. So I'm attracted to the darkness that we all have from drinking, and I'm also attracted to the sobriety, so I can see the difference each day, and we try and help each other. So the sane try and help the insane, and the insane, well, we've all been there, I assure you. So daily reflections is a good starting point for me every day. And when I woke up this morning, I didn't feel too good. I watched the news, which was full of catastrophe and mayhem, inequality beyond belief. And to cut a long story short on that one, what was highlighted in my mind was watching a mouse run across the floor when I was lying in bed, thinking, why aren't these mouse traps working? Anyway, I've calmed down into the moment. So the AA daily reflection for today, followed by 1 or 2 words from me. An unbroken tradition. We conceive the survival and spread of Alcoholics Anonymous to be something of far greater importance than the weight we could collectively throw back at the back of any other cause. So in other words, like I said, everybody in AA has an opinion, a belief, a connection to a cause or something or other, even if it's their own personal cause. But with the fellowship, we are there for one purpose, primary purpose, which is to keep sober and help other alcoholics attain sobriety. So, how much it means to me that an unbroken tradition of more than half a century spread is a thread that connects me to Bill W. and Dr. Bob, and those are the co-founders. How much more grounded I feel to be in a fellowship whose aims are constant and unflagging. I'm grateful that the energies of AA have never been scattered, but focused instead on our members and on individual sobriety. My beliefs are what make me human. I am free to hold any opinion, but AA's purpose, so clearly stated 50 years ago, and I think it's now 75 or 80 years ago, is for me to keep sober. That purpose has promoted round-the-clock meeting schedules, 24/7, and the thousands of intergroup and central service offices with their thousands of volunteers. Like the sun focused through a magnifying glass, AA's single vision has lit a fire of faith in sobriety in millions of hearts, including mine. And that sums it up for me. I can be me, with all my opinions, but fellowship is about sobriety. And it's not about belief in God, although many people do believe in God. It's not about whether you're an agnostic or atheist, but there is a thing about a higher power helping us all the time. And the higher power is focused on sobriety, how to love, be loved and useful, and looking at truth, love and wisdom. So where do I get my truth? Where do I get to understand what is love? Where do I get my wisdom? So those are where my thoughts came in this morning. I mean, starting with the bit about my beliefs on what make me human. So in fellowship, my beliefs are what make me human. I am free to hold any opinion, and the same applies for everyone. So I need be respectful and listen as well. We do not impose our beliefs on our fellows. Indeed, it would be folly to do so and cause some to get drunk all over again. Because if you say to a person, you can only get sober if you follow my path, it's not their path. When it says in the chapter 5 of the Big Book, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. A lot of people forget that it's our path. It's the 12 steps and 12 traditions, not a personal version of the 12 steps and 12 traditions that another person might share with you. That's their way, with their opinion and belief, which they're allowed to have, as are you. At the same time, AA has one primary purpose: for us to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So that's really important to me. I want people to have their own opinion and beliefs, and I also want the fellowship. No, I need the fellowship, and I need people to have their own personal opinions, and I need the fellowship to be what it is: a society, not an organisation where people tell you what to do. Indeed, there are no leaders as such in AA. Everything's done around collective understanding through a group conscience, working to the good of fellowship. This morning, I woke up sober today. I needed to remind myself of this simple fact, which has been occurring for some time, well, for some years. The world may be going to hell in a handbasket. I quite like that phrase, but it hasn't got any swear words in it. And I can still cope with reality and have enough porridge in the cupboard to feed this bear today. It's true, I seem to be feeding mice as well, but not the porridge. They don't seem to. I've put some traps out, which is not a very It's not very charitable, but I need to keep the place fairly clean and healthy. I'm susceptible to catching things, being a type 1 diabetic, so my immune system is not as good as it used to be. Yeah, so I may put some chocolate down for them. It's better they eat it than me. We do not have, and then going on, this is also important to me. We do not have to please people today. We do not have to control people today. All we need is truth, love, and wisdom. Truth comes from listening and understanding. Love is what we learn to receive and give. And wisdom comes from the universe as we understand it today. Does God work in mysterious ways? Because if anything, for me, God would, whatever God may be to you, for me, God is truth, love, and wisdom. And the wisdom comes from the universe as we understand it today. But does God work in mysterious ways? I feel and think not, just for today. Because, spiritual, as one senior cleric said, when asked what is spiritual, he said it's the ability to cope with what is going on today. So everything is spiritual. And if God doesn't work in mysterious ways, it's just the fact that we don't have the knowledge within us, which makes it mysterious, until we ask for help. And the asking for help in fellowship afforded me the ability to come out of confusion about my situation and find out how to be sober. And that is not mysterious anymore, it's a fact of life. So is it mysterious? Well, if we're confused and muddled, but we are open to listening and learning, then it's less mysterious, I guess, for me. But I don't want to undermine anyone else, that's my opinion. God is something more and all-embracing. I mean, I think that is all-embracing for me. That's how I'm thinking today. But we can all be atheist, agnostic or believers depending on our life experiences. And many have experiences that God exists in their world. Or not. Or just don't know. We learn as we may. It's a continuous learning process. And we don't have to give anything up. All we need to do is make enough sense of it to cope with what is going on. And that is our spiritual progress. Previous years, drunk or sober, we are still having a spiritual experience, and some support the notion of heightened spiritual connections under the influence of drink or drugs. My experience is simple. I have a more informed spiritual experience sober, more likely to remember the experience and learn from them one day at a time. So the thing about drink and drugs is it expands our universe to the very extent or size of our heads. And if we are fully awash with drink and drugs in our heads, well, we don't need any outside experience, do we? It's a fully functioning madness. Sober first, and real life happens. We can be dismayed daily or joyous daily, as life offers. When I stopped drinking, life felt like hell. Gone to hell in a handbasket. And then got easier and easier to deal with on a daily basis. Didn't make it easier in the sense of asking for help and being involved and remembering what worked and what didn't work. These days, when all hell breaks loose, I don't lose it completely. I think that's what I meant. And can cope. Find help and support, get back to balance, whatever that is today. It could be balance at the extremes of feeling, being able to cope with them until they come back into some place of normal, where imperfectly perfect life happens. Life is difficult for all of us. And if we get swamped, one of the interesting things with politics these days is the politics of breaking people up into factions yet again and again and again. So party politics, where one party says they have a better idea than another party. It doesn't seem to be quite that good these days, does it? I mean, people are having to get into great big unions across countries in order to try and sort out mega problems. But the great problem really is the inequality of what's going on, and that is lost in encouraging those who have enough to keep it, or those who have excess to keep it, and not share it out. Well, that sounds a bit socialist, I know, but the point is this: needs met, wants forgotten. If everybody worked that, would be a much happier state, and it would also improve our economic outlook too, because growth would occur naturally, because there is an incentive for growth to occur rather than greed. Yes, there you go. Greed is what probably put me in the problem in the first place, but these days, needs met, wants forgotten. So that's me for today. Some of my opinions always creep into my videos because I'm a human being with an outlook, and I'm sober enough today to know it. So we all follow our own path as we choose, and we don't want to impose our views and opinions on other people when it comes to sobriety. So fellowship is about sober first, and the rest of life can happen. You're entitled to exactly what you understand your feelings, beliefs and opinions to be, but within fellowship we start sober, work on sober, so that all those feelings, beliefs and whatever it is work for you in your life. And we don't try and please other people or control them in fellowship. And if people try that because it's old behaviour, my way is better than your way, it's not so. It's thy way, our way, together. So we need the traditions to help us understand our part in it. Keeping another person sober is not about making them like you or me. It's a person developing their individuality, making progress, not perfectly, on their life journey, experiencing the journey as it is today, coping with reality, good or bad. What helps at any time, the can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference bit for me, is the serenity prayer, which is to good conscience or to God or both, whatever you believe. The serenity prayer helps me say to myself, I can change my attitudes and behaviour, I can change me. I cannot change the world, your attitudes and behaviour, because I can't, realistically. I might impose a view on you, and you may go along with it for a bit, but do you adopt it? I doubt it. So it's can do, can't do. I can change me and be influential in what I'm trying to do for me and those around me. I can't change you and your attitudes. So we all have freedom of choice. That's where we all started in nature, even though it might not seem so. These days there is a greater possibility of that, even though the politics of it are seen as dangerous. Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, the serenity prayer, can do, can't do, wisdom to know the difference. So to God or in good conscience, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Can do, can't do, in the moment, and just for today.